kissing my sister.
Claire, your sister died 12 years ago.
Then who placed this on my table, and why does it say he knows what happened to her?
The photograph on my dining room table showed my husband kissing a woman who had been dead for 12 years. On the back, someone had written 7 words in red ink. My name is Claire Bennett. I am 41 years old, and until that Tuesday evening, I believed I had a peaceful life in Columbus, Ohio. I had a successful home staging business, a beautiful house, and a husband named Daniel who had stood beside me through the worst tragedy my family had ever faced. At least, that was the story I had believed. The woman in the photograph was my younger sister, Emily. She had disappeared on a stormy night in October 12 years earlier. Her car was found near the Scioto River with the driver's door open, her purse on the seat, and one shoe in the mud. The police searched for weeks. Divers entered the river. Volunteers walked through fields and wooded areas. No body was ever found. After 7 years, Emily was declared legally dead. Daniel had held me at the courthouse while I cried. Now I was staring at a recent photograph of him kissing her outside a motel. I knew it was recent because Daniel was wearing the navy coat I had bought him last Christmas. Behind them was a campaign sign for Mayor Lucas Trent, and Lucas had only announced his campaign 2 months earlier. My hands shook so badly that the photograph slipped from my fingers. The front door opened. "Claire," Daniel called. "I'm home." I had less than 5 seconds to decide whether to confront him. Instead, I slid the photograph beneath a real estate brochure and walked into the kitchen. Daniel entered carrying a bottle of wine and a paper bag from my favorite Italian restaurant. He smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, "I thought we could celebrate." "Celebrate what?" He placed the food on the counter. "The Ridgeway contract. You got it, didn't you?" I had received that contract 3 hours earlier. It was worth almost $80,000. I had not told him yet. "How did you know?" His smile paused for half a second. Then he laughed. "Your assistant posted something online." My assistant, Nicole, had not posted anything. We had agreed to keep the contract private until the paperwork was signed. That was the first crack. Once I saw it, I began to notice all the others. Daniel poured wine into 2 glasses. His left cuff was damp, though it had not rained. There was a small streak of pale green paint near his watch. Emily's favorite color had always been sea glass green. I told myself that detail meant nothing. Then Daniel touched my shoulder and asked, "Are you all right?" I looked into the face of the man I had slept beside for 14 years. "Just tired," I said. That night, I pretended to fall asleep. At 1:17 in the morning, Daniel's phone vibrated on the nightstand. He woke immediately, took it, and went into the bathroom. I heard the shower turn on, but no water hit the floor. He was using the sound to cover a conversation. I slipped out of bed and moved closer to the door. "No," he whispered. "She doesn't know." A pause. I said, "I'll handle Claire." Another pause. Then his voice became cold. "Emily had 12 years to disappear. If she ruins this now, that's on her." I returned to bed before he came out. I kept my breathing slow, while every memory of my marriage rearranged itself inside my head. Daniel and I had met 2 months after Emily vanished. He was a financial advisor working with a grief support charity. He had listened when nobody else knew what to say. He remembered the dates that hurt. He drove me to police meetings and brought coffee to search volunteers. I had called him my miracle. Now I wondered whether our meeting had ever been an accident. The following morning, I waited until Daniel left for work. Then I pulled the photograph from beneath the brochure and examined every detail. The motel sign in the background was partly visible. I could read only 3 letters ROW. I searched motels within 100 miles. There were 14 possibilities. One was the Arrow Motor Lodge in Dayton. The room behind Daniel and Emily had a green door with a brass number 6. Photographs from the Arrow's website showed those exact doors. Dayton was 70 miles away. I called Nicole and told her I had a family emergency. Then I drove west. The Arrow Motor Lodge looked smaller and dirtier than it had online. A row of green doors faced a cracked parking lot. A woman in her 60s sat behind the office counter reading a crossword puzzle. I showed her Emily's picture. It was an old family photograph, taken before she disappeared. "Have you seen this woman?" The manager studied it and shook her head. I placed $200 bills on the counter. She looked at the money, then at me. "Room 6, she said quietly. "She calls herself Nora, pays cash every Thursday. A man visits sometimes. The man in this photograph." Her eyes narrowed. "You a cop?" "I'm his wife." The manager pushed 1 bill back toward me. "Then keep half. You'll need it more than I do." Room 6 was empty, but the manager let me inside. The room smelled of bleach and lavender. There were no clothes, no suitcase, and no personal photographs. It looked less like a home than a place where someone waited. I checked the bathroom, the drawers, and beneath the mattress. Nothing. Then I saw pale green paint on the edge of the windowsill. the same shade that had been on Daniel's cuff. Outside, a car door slammed. I moved behind the curtain. A silver sedan pulled into the parking lot. Emily stepped out. For 12 years, I had imagined seeing her again. In some dreams, I ran to her. In others, I screamed. Sometimes she was still 25, smiling as if no time had passed. The real Emily looked 37 and exhausted. Her brown hair was shorter. A thin scar crossed her chin. She carried groceries in one arm and kept looking over her shoulder. I opened the door. The bag fell from her hands. An orange rolled across the pate and stopped between us. "Claire?" she whispered. I slapped her. The sound echoed across the parking lot. She did not defend herself. "You let me bury you," I said. "You let Mom die believing she had lost you." Emily began to cry. "I know. You let me marry him." Her expression changed. "You have to leave before Daniel sees you." "He already knows I'm here?" "He knows everything." She pulled me into the room and locked the door. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Emily showed me the scar beneath her hairline. "Daniel did not meet you after I disappeared," she said. "He met me first." The story came out in broken pieces. 12 years earlier, Emily had worked as a junior accountant for a construction company called Meridian Civic Group. Daniel was an outside financial consultant. Together, they discovered that Meridian was stealing millions from public housing projects by billing the city for materials that were never purchased. The scheme involved executives, inspectors, and a young city attorney named Lucas Trent, the same man now running for mayor. Emily wanted to report everything. Daniel convinced her to wait. He said they needed stronger proof. Instead, he sold their evidence back to Meridian. On the night Emily disappeared, Daniel asked her to meet him near the river. She expected him to bring copies of the records. He brought 2 men. "They tried to force me into their car," she said. "I ran. One of them hit me with a flashlight. I fell down the riverbank." "How did you survive?" "A fisherman found me before sunrise. I was confused and bleeding. He called an ambulance, but I heard a police radio mention my name before help arrived. Daniel had already reported me unstable and dangerous. He told them I had stolen money." Emily believed the police were part of the scheme. Terrified, she gave the fisherman a false name and fled to Kentucky. She spent years moving between towns, working for cash, and gathering proof. "Why didn't you call me?" I demanded. "I tried." She opened a metal box beneath the bed and removed a cheap prepaid phone. Inside it were photographs of me taken over many years, leaving work, visiting our mother, entering my own wedding, standing at Emily's empty grave. "Daniel sent these whenever I threatened to come home," she said. "He told me he was watching you. Then he married you." My stomach turned. "He married me to control you." Emily nodded. "And because Mom had something he wanted." Our mother had owned 20 acres of industrial land outside Columbus. The property had seemed nearly worthless when she died. She left it equally to Emily and me. But Emily was legally dead. Her half passed to me. 3 months earlier, the state had approved a highway expansion beside that land. Its value had risen from $200,000 to nearly $9 million. Daniel had encouraged me to sell. I had refused. Now I understood why. "Who put the photograph on my table?" I asked. Emily looked confused. "What photograph?" When I showed it to her, the blood left her face. "That wasn't a kiss," she said. I was whispering in his ear. I told him I had copied the files. "Who took it?" "I don't know." A heavy knock struck the door. Emily turned off the light. "Nora." A man called from outside. "Maintenance." The manager had told me there was no maintenance worker. Emily pulled a small drive from the metal box and pushed it into my hand. "Go through the bathroom window. I'm not leaving you again." "Claire, listen to me. Daniel thinks I have the only copy. If he sees us together, he'll know you have it." The knock became a violent blow against the door. The frame cracked. I climbed through the narrow window and dropped into wet grass behind the motel. As I ran toward my car, I heard the room door break open. Then I heard Emily scream. I called 911 from the highway. By the time police arrived, room 6 was empty. The manager was unconscious behind her desk. The motel's security recorder had been removed. Emily was gone again. But this time, I knew who had taken her. I drove to a crowded coffee shop and opened the files on an old laptop I kept for presentations. Most were financial records. Payments moved through fake contractors into accounts controlled by Meridian executives and Lucas Trent. One folder was labeled Bennett. Inside were copies of my bank statements, my medical records, and the deed to my mother's land. There was also a life insurance policy worth $3 million. Daniel had taken it out on me 8 months earlier. My signature was forged. The final file was an audio recording. Daniel's voice spoke first. "Once Claire signs the land transfer, we're finished." Lucas Trent answered, "And if she doesn't?" Daniel laughed. "Grief nearly broke her once. It can happen again." I stopped the recording. I wanted to vomit. Instead, I copied every file to 3 different storage accounts and sent one package to an attorney named Maya Flores. Maya had been my closest friend in college. Daniel disliked her because she asked direct questions and never laughed at his charming stories. He had slowly pushed her out of our life. I finally understood why. Maya called within 4 minutes. "Where are you?" "Dayton. Do not go home. He has Emily." There was a long silence. "Your sister is alive." "Yes." Maya took one breath. "Then we don't panic. We build a cage, and we make Daniel walk into it." The next morning, I returned home. Daniel was waiting in the kitchen. He looked worried, loving, and completely false. "Where were you?" he asked. I forced tears into my eyes. "I got scared about the Ridgeway contract. I drove around all night." He embraced me. I felt his hand slide over my coat pockets. He was searching me. "You should have called," he said. "I'm sorry." Then I gave him exactly what he wanted. "Maybe you were right about Mom's property. Maybe we should sell." His arms tightened around me. "That's a big decision. I'm tired of fighting about it." He kissed my forehead. "I'll arrange everything." For the next 4 days, I played the obedient wife. Daniel prepared the transfer documents. I smiled at breakfast. I answered his questions. At night, I slept beside him with a recording device beneath the mattress and pepper spray beneath my pillow. Meanwhile, Maya contacted a federal investigator she trusted. The financial files were strong, but we needed proof connecting Daniel to Emily's kidnapping. Then Daniel made a mistake. He asked me to attend a private fundraising dinner for Lucas Trent. The dinner would take place inside an unfinished luxury apartment tower owned by Meridian Civic Group. The top floor had been staged for wealthy donors. My company had been hired to decorate it. That meant I controlled the furniture, the lighting, the cameras, and the sound system. Daniel believed he was bringing me into his world. He did not realize he was walking into mine. The night of the fundraiser, I wore a black dress and my mother's silver necklace. Daniel wore the navy suit from our wedding anniversary. Nearly 100 donors filled the glass-walled penthouse. Lucas Trent moved through the room, shaking hands and promising honest government. Daniel leaned close to me. "Afternoon, everything changes." "I know," I said. At 8:30, Lucas called everyone toward the dining area. A long table stood beneath hanging lights. At each place was a campaign brochure. At the center was an empty silver frame. I had placed it there myself. Lucas raised a glass. "Tonight is about trust." I almost laughed. Then the elevator opened. 2 security guards entered with Emily between them. Her hands were not tied, but fear covered her face. Daniel whispered, "What is she doing here?" Lucas's smile vanished. That was when I understood something important. Daniel had not kidnapped Emily. Lucas had. The 2 men were no longer partners. Each planned to betray the other. Emily looked at me and said, "Claire, don't sign anything." Daniel grabbed my arm. "She's sick. She has been blackmailing us." "Us?" I asked. He realized his mistake too late. Lucas stepped forward. "Daniel, take your wife downstairs." Daniel did not move. Instead, he pulled a folded document from his jacket. "The land transfer is already signed." He had forged my signature again. Lucas reached for it. Daniel held it away. "First, my payment." The room became silent. Donors glanced at one another, unsure whether they were watching a private argument or a crime. I pressed a button on the bracelet around my wrist. The lights dimmed. The campaign video screens turned on. The first image displayed was the photograph from my dining room table. Then Daniel's recorded voice filled the penthouse. "Once Claire signs the land transfer, we're finished." Lucas's reply followed. "And if she doesn't?" Grief nearly broke her once. "It can happen again." Guests began pulling out their phones. Lucas lunged toward the control panel, but Nicole had disabled it. The screens changed again. Fake invoices appeared. Bank transfers, names, dates, public housing projects that had been left with leaking roofs and unsafe wiring while Meridian executives stole the money. Daniel looked at me as if he had never seen me before. "You did this?" "No," I said. "You did. I just put it on a larger screen." Lucas ordered his guards to remove Emily. They did not move. One of them took out a badge. Federal agents entered through the elevator and the service stairs. For one beautiful second, Lucas Trent looked exactly like the honest man from his campaign posters. Then fear erased the performance. Daniel released my arm. "Claire, listen to me. I protected you." I stared at him. "You watched me mourn my sister for 12 years. I never wanted anyone to hurt you. You took out a life insurance policy on me." His face changed again. The loving husband disappeared. "You ungrateful." He stopped because an agent had stepped behind him. Emily crossed the room and stood beside me. She was shaking, but she was alive. Lucas pointed toward Daniel. "He planned everything. He attacked the girl at the river." Daniel shouted, "You ordered it." Lucas replied, "You sold her to us." For years, those men had survived because frightened people kept their secrets. Now they destroyed each other in front of cameras. It should have been the end, but the most painful truth was still waiting. As agents led Daniel away, he turned toward me. "Ask Emily who took the photograph." My sister went still. Daniel smiled. "Go ahead, ask her." I looked at Emily. "Did you put it on my table?" Tears filled her eyes. "Less." The answer hurt more than I expected. Emily had returned to Columbus 6 months earlier. She had followed Daniel, collected evidence, and entered my home while I was working. She could have waited for me. She could have called Maya. Instead, she left the photograph where Daniel might find it. "Why?" I asked. "Because I needed to know which one of you would react first." I stepped away from her. "You used me as bait." I thought he would confess. He could have killed me. "I was watching the house. You watched our mother die from a distance. You watched me marry him. You watched me for 12 years. Emily began to sob. I was afraid, so she reached for me, but I raised my hand. "Not tonight." Justice arrived loudly. Healing came much more slowly. Daniel pleaded guilty to fraud, conspiracy, kidnapping, forgery, and attempted murder. He received 28 years in federal prison. Lucas Trent's campaign ended before sunrise. His arrest led investigators to 6 officials and 3 Meridian executives. The company collapsed, and its remaining assets were used to repair the housing projects it had cheated. My forged land transfer was canceled. I sold the property months later, but not to Meridian. The city bought it for a public medical center and a legal aid office. Part of the money created a fund for families harmed by the corruption. That was my revenge. Daniel had wanted the land to make himself richer. Instead, it became the reason victims could fight people like him. I divorced him before his sentencing. In court, he tried to look at me with the soft expression that had once made me feel safe. I felt nothing. When the judge asked whether I wanted to speak, I stood and placed the photograph on the table in front of me. "This picture ended my marriage," I said. But the betrayal did not begin when I found it. It began 12 years earlier, when Daniel decided my grief was a door he could walk through. He lowered his eyes. He studied my pain. He learned the names of the people I loved. Then he used that knowledge to control me. I looked directly at him. "You believed loving you made me weak." It did not. It only made your crime easier to see when the truth arrived. Emily and I did not become sisters again immediately. For months, we met with a therapist in a quiet office across from a park. Some days we spoke. Some days we only cried. I learned that survival can make people selfish. Emily learned that fear does not erase responsibility. On the first anniversary of Daniel's arrest, we visited our mother's grave. Emily carried white roses. "Do you think she would forgive me?" she asked. "Eventually," I said. "But she would make you work for it." Emily laughed through her tears. "That sounds like Mom." We placed the flowers together. Then she handed me the photograph. I had not seen it since the trial. "I think this belongs to you," she said. I studied it one last time. The image no longer showed a husband kissing a dead woman. It showed 2 frightened sisters, separated by a man who believed lies could last forever. I tore the photograph in half. Then I tore it again. I did not keep the pieces. Some evidence belongs in a courtroom. Some belongs in the past. And some should be placed on a table, beneath the brightest light in the room, so everyone can finally see the truth. Daniel thought the photograph would destroy me. He was wrong. It only showed me where to aim.